Yep. No, I hear you.
It's fun.
No, it
45 is a good year, though. It's the best caliber.
sucks. Okay.
It's the best caliber.
Take your word for it.
You get your 44 and your 45. Then after that, I mean, they like to argue 50 is a good caliber. It's not.
Okay.
It's not. It's a little overkill for a handgun. But, you know, is what it is.
I'll take the gun analogy.
Yeah, it's 45, man.
All right.
2 things a man needs in life, Reed.
Is love in a 45?
What can you do without?
Well, some would argue
Just answer it.
love. That's what you want me to say.
But that's what you've always been taught, Daniel, son. Which brings me to, I know I've been ripped on with movies, not music references.
Yeah, music we.
Music we do good, but movies we don't.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to be okay on this one, but I'm not 100%.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to go with, I'm going to
You
piggy.
Scooby-Dooed me last time,
I did,
but that one was okay.
I did Scooby-Doo you. That one worked. We're going to, okay, I think that's going to work. And we're going to piggyback on the Smith machine build
Oh.
and the doing that we talked about
I
last.
finished it. I finished it by myself. No, no, I lied. My 18-year-old helped me for like the last hour of that project last Sunday.
You couldn't just
It wasn't him.
couldn't
no.
weasel in for an hour
It was not him.
so you could get some like.
Some
well,
he was the one
already
that was
did.
present, right?
He
yeah.
already did. He already
helped-
brought.
he brought-
He
he
brought.
helped bring
You
it.
know, he was the brawn that brought it down into the room.
But I lied. Yeah, I did
All right.
finish it, the project though.
All right. So you've given both your sons, your oldest sons, some props. Good. It's going to go on that a little bit to control what we can control, and then your response to that. When I re-listened to the pod, I was like, "That was a good response you had." That everything else kind of dissipates a little bit. Anxieties, fears, directional, possible issues with direction or anything like that, misdirection. Feeling like you're going and accomplishing something. I brought up something to Paige today, and I said, "Did you ever talk to our daughter, Presley, was hitting the gym at 5 a.m., and then going to EVIT, and then going back to high school, and then cruising to a job a couple of times a week, but still maintaining a very impressive, and then comparing that to right now where she's not doing the gym and she's not doing the work and the job. Jake, I was so much happier when I was,
routine.
in that routine. And so it reminded me of a movie that again, a little nervous. Wax the floor. Paint the fence.
Okay, so Karate Kid.
There we go.
Gotcha. 80s movie, but I was alive.
Right. Yes.
Absolutely. In
And
fact, I was listening to an interview with Charlie Sheen that he was actually given the part for Danielson.
Right.
Did you know that?
Yeah, and he turned it down,
He
which
turned
I'm
it
kind of
down.
glad.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how we find these things out later? Like, Harrison Ford was supposed to play Han Solo, and you just can't. No, not
That was
that.
he
But
did
you know what I mean. He was supposed to play something else, and
Yeah.
it's like you can't quite place it. Like, how would you ever
How
pull
that
that off?
worked.
I just don't see you as Maverick in Top Gun
Yeah.
type thing. Okay. Well, Daniel's son has a come apart, has an absolute, he feels like he's been wasting all this time and doing all this work. And whomever made this film did a very good job of detail. There's some good detail because you remember him leaving late in the evening, and you remember him physically kind of in pain somewhere.
Yeah.
Each time. And then he just come back tomorrow and blah, blah. And then he's waxing all these cars, lots of them, doing the floor, a ton of deck, a ton of wood, painting a fence, a boat, like it just went on and on and on. And he's like, when are you going to blah, 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 da, da, da. When are you going to teach me how to
kill someone?
Right. Do karate. I want to learn. That's what I'm doing for you. Oh, you want to learn karate? And, the interplay right there. And he says, wax the floor. And he goes, wax the floor. Or paint the fence. Wax on, wax off, wax on. And he told him exactly how he had him doing it. And then all of a sudden they have that moment where he's like, ah, da, 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 and they're fighting, and he's blocking and, able to do karate far more than he ever thought, because he was waxing the floor or waxing the cars, painting the fence, and sanding the floor. Okay. And then from then, preseason was over, but he had the basics down and some strength to go along with it, because he was very meticulous, and he'd come out and check on him once in a while, if you remember the movie a little bit. And they, oh, no.
Got to do it again. Yeah.
And then do it again. And so that has to talk to your inner basketball coach. And it's talks to my inner whatever. But it's one of those things where doing the deed, finishing the Smith machine is, okay, you did that. You did that. Now, whether you know it or not, your kids, all of them, saw that. So when they are in the good calibers, 44, 45, when they are 35, when they are 32, they have a reference of what a man can do. Now, you might not mow your lawn, but Dad put together that Smith machine. And I'm sure that's not the only accomplishment that you've had.
Unfortunately, I've done a lot of DIY stuff as a new house. We've had lots of Amazon furniture that had to be put together in the last little bit. So yeah, I've been probably more hands-on on the labor side than I have been in years.
And they get to see that, oh, you have it, whether they're saying it out loud or not.
Sure.
You know how to. I mean, you were even jacking with this thing with 2 Allen wrenches until you went,
there's actually
I should
tool
go
that probably works better.
I could go get my ratchet set.
I was the same way with the screwdriver by hand with, half the tools. And I'm like, I think I got a drill in the garage.
Right.
Yeah, that made that project go way faster.
Yeah, it is. It's the tools, and then, you live and learn, and so on and so forth. But the Karate Kid thing made me think, okay, that's what we're missing. That's what we're missing, because I started thinking about, I bring up television a lot with you in my youth, as though it was a feature, a big feature. The reality was, it was every once in a while, but it was a big deal when you got to see I Love Lucy. People would laugh at that now. I get it, or when you sat down and watched an episode of My Favorite Martian, it's like, it was funny. Dude had little antennas that grew out of his head. It was hilarious. Or
you were on a good track with now you're going backwards.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Karate Kid, I was on.
I'm going to go back to that, but that's
I
scary.
Love Lucy was a little.
I understand that, or the honeymooners, but it was a.
I
big,
know what it is.
It was a. It was a sit down for a minute and like. It doesn't matter. There might be nobody out there that knows My Favorite Martian. There was My Three Sons. There was a lot of kick-ins, and they would filter out and in, and filter out and in. And it was like a loop of whatever they had in their vault. But that said, it was a big deal to watch.
It was like
TV.
sit-down TV back in the day.
Yeah,
like if it was your favorite show as a family or whatever.
Kinda.
Yeah.
And that one would be more on your own or with your brother or whomever, and you usually sitting there watching I Love Lucy, and that was it. And then when it's over, but from the sun up to the sun down, we were throwing rocks at each other, we were building ramps, we were playing hoop, we had a game that we would play, and there's a couple of our front yards that were perfectly situated for this. It was not wiffle ball, because wiffle balls were too light and you couldn't throw them fast enough. So we got a sock and we put and we wrapped it in duct tape, and we threw it. And so we had a wiffle ball game to where whomever is running the bases, if you chuck that ball and hit them, they're out.
Yeah, we played wiffle ball. We even built our own wiffle ball field in like somebody's farm pasture that was like abandoned. And we like mowed it all down and got people to sponsor like our fence. This is like 6th grade or something like that.
This is what the entire movie of
kind of Sandlot issue type of thing was what ours was.
You inspired not only Sandlot,
no, I didn't.
but also what's that one movie called? If you build it, they will come. Field of Dreams.
Two great movies.
You inspired Field of Dreams and Sandlot.
Yeah, no, and it wasn't even. That's just like you said. That's what you did. You just were creative, and you we learned how to play lacrosse not because we knew how to play lacrosse, because we went to a Play It Again Sports and they had lacrosse sticks for 50 cents, and we're like, "What's this?" And let's just go start. And then we're hucking balls around with that thing, and then we're like, "Wait, this is kind of fun. Let's go find somebody that knows how to play." And one of our dads happened to play college lacrosse, and all of a sudden taught us the game, and we started a club team at the high school.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that
was the beginning of it,
and that's how the world worked back then.
Yeah,
it was raining. You went and played rain football. And
exactly,
you got dirty.
It was even better, right? It was even better. So no fun. Shoes needed, and so that was those days, and it was sun up to sundown, and it was active, go, 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 go. And now I talk about this with Paige sometimes, that we're trying to simulate the way we used to live by going an hour a day to the gym, or the activity that we're no longer doing, because you and I sit behind a desk and talk to folks all day long about issues and legal movings and comings and goings and how to help them best, and spur on a staff that's incredibly great, and you want to keep that going, and so on and so forth. So we got a lot of balls in the air there, and because your kids gotten this bad habit of eating and needing shelter and all that stuff, and that doesn't ever get any cheaper, it seems. And so back to Karate Kid. And back to last week's pod, I very much enjoyed it. I frankly wouldn't have flown without the candor, without the awesome input of Caden. I mean, without that.
It's nice to have a different.
It's fantastic.
So we got a generational gap of 20 years between.
Yeah, and it was amazing because what is in his mind and what is in the world is, and I'm not picking on you.
No, it's reflective of his generation,
right?
For sure.
That's there. The world is here, and the experience of getting that lacrosse stick, the experience of sanding that floor, waxing that car, not knowing why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? How many college courses do you apply in your daily life right now, percentage-wise?
Yeah, no, and I try and justify it, and I try and find the silver linings of things that I've learned. Even law school classes, you could ask the same question, and I'm like, okay, well,
I am.
There's writing skills, there's logic, thinking skills. So I understand there's skills you learn generally, but if you're asking me specifics from a specific class, not just the whole process of learning how to study and do things, very little.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
very little. But what it did do was
taught discipline, taught creative
grind.
thinking, taught organization.
It taught how.
Yeah.
It taught how. So we brought that how to the workforce, and that's why they say the A students end up as college professors, the Bs end up as judges, because, and we're going to make a lot of friends here, or at least I am, because they don't do anything. Yeah. They don't do anything. And the C guys make all the money. That's the way that was put back in law school. Well, your C's make all the money, your B's go and become judges, and your A's, become professors. Those that can't.
It's funny, my top of my class is a judge right now.
See?
He big firmed it for a minute, but then he's a judge now.
Yeah.
The other top of the class is a professor.
So
you're not far off from where
I don't think I will. Whatever, that was something I just picked up there. I didn't make it up.
I've never heard that, but that's interesting. I mean, it makes sense. I don't know why it makes sense. I don't know what. Because we've talked about the whole process of how we hire. We talked about that in our last podcast.
Yeah.
That we're not looking, where I was interviewed with a couple of firms that I didn't have bad. I did well in law school, but I wasn't that top, 5%, but I probably fell in between the 5 and 15 or something like that. But that whole process was off-putting.
But that was competitive.
Yeah, but when it was off-putting when I interview, and they're asking me not my name but my rank and my
file,
moot court and whatever else, and some of those I had, but I was like, really? I am Jesse, and I have a child, and
I have
a
no
wife, and I can talk through this interview, but you just want to know my number. And then one of them was like, I need a writing sample. And if you make one mistake, you don't even bother coming back in. And I was like, yeah, I'm not even going to send that to you type of thing.
Right.
Because that was just,
that
was off-putting a little bit.
It is off-putting. Lawyers, for the most part, kind of are.
Yeah, sometimes we're.
I mean, we deserve a lot of those jokes. I don't think you and I do.
There's different breeds for each, and maybe we're the C students, like you said.
Well, I have the mentality of when I'm too competitive to have landed there.
Have the C.
Right. Yeah. But, I'm just competitive by nature. And it's like, I'm here. I might as well, I might as well do it. But the learn factor, but do I apply the grind, the solutioning, the figuring things out, the wax on, wax off, and when to use that, and when to use sand the floor, and when to use paint the fence? Is that kind of what I learned? Yeah.
So to your point, so I know, revisiting the podcast, because I was, trying to remember what we were talking about, but it's all coming back. So is your part of your thought here that, Caden's comment was, we do things because we see a purpose or a point to it.
Yeah.
And sometimes if we don't see a purpose or a point, there's no point in doing it. There's no reason to do it. And that sometimes that point is hidden in just the process. Is that what you're trying? Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes what we learn most is in the grind.
Yeah.
Is during the battle, not after. Okay. And so that was interesting. I mean, how many times have you had to readdress something with a case that you learned because of another case or another one or another one or another one, and maybe it wasn't the best of scenarios or the best of outcomes, but you learned something to where you kind of found
adjustments.
You found a
and
different
there's got to be some
adjustment.
psychology to that. I remember I had a friend who we were in a situation where we were both in a better spot, meaning, so this was on my mission, so we were both doing good service at that time, but he was 25 at the time, and so obviously, if anybody's familiar with the culture, usually missionary 19 to 21 at that time, and so being 25, I knew something had gone on in life that he decided to go out late, and sometimes that's just whatever. Sometimes it's converts, sometimes whatever, but as I dug into it, he was my companion, I found out that he was a rough teenager. Like back in the day when the parents would send you to these like alternative programs and rehabilitation type of things.
Back then that wasn't.
They were legit things. And he was telling me a story where he was sent to Hawaii or Tonga or some Polynesian island to one of these alternative places, and they had them for the first week fill up a sandbag, carry it 300 yards down the beach, empty the sandbag, fill up the sandbag, carry it 300 yards, literally for just 10 days, filling up sandbags, and brings zero purpose to it. But it was this process of breaking them down, of doing work, and kind of similar to it. There was no purpose or thought, but it was the discipline of doing it and obeying and being subject. And he said one of the, within a day, one of the guys had tried to punch one of the counselors, but these are all these big Polynesian guys that knocked him basically out, the kid, right at the beginning of the thing. And nowadays this doesn't work anymore because our culture is different. But back
if we send him there though.
Yeah, maybe not. Back then the parents were like, it was okay with the kid being knocked out because that was what he needed at the time. And I know the culture is a little bit different now, but that whole psychology, I'm sure, had been studied of, like you said, just the tedious job of carrying sand back and forth with no purpose. But that was to break down kind of their mentality of obeying and discipline and whatever else. I don't know if it worked or not, but I know that was part of their process. And I thought it was interesting what he was explaining.
So while you're telling me the sandbag thing, I went immediately to this thing. And you've got Gunnery Sergeant in Full Metal Jacket, another movie that
I know of.
But hopefully you just know of it. And you've got this fella that you best unscrew yourself or I will do it for you. And I mean, everything that he did in that beginnings of, I love this, but it's foul and I can't share it with most people, and I want to share with all my boys and just say this, he's not wrong, guys. He's not wrong. I mean, there's a pudgy kid, there's a short kid, there's a black kid, there's a white kid, there's an Italian kid, there's a boom. I mean, he's equal, boom, 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 just hammering. It did not matter to him what you are. It mattered to him what you did. Okay, and so the fat kid, they found a jelly roll in a jelly donut when he did when he searched all the bags and whatever, and what do we have here? Blah 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 blah. Made everybody. We talked about this a little bit in another one. Made everybody do push-ups while he sat there and ate the jelly donut. They paid for it. You eat it. You know, can't do one pull-up. One pull-up you can't do. I mean, just the come apart. And this is in an era where most of us were somewhat capable to a degree. I mean, to various degrees, but capable. And yeah, he was heavier, and the actor had to gain a ton of weight to play this role and all this jazz. But Gunnery Sergeant was so bloody good in that movie because he was disciplined. I'm not going to tell you why, because that's not coming over the radio when bullets are whizzing at you. Okay? You're the Marines. And they don't tell you why. And in life, when I say to somebody around here, hey, take this to do and get it filed. And I might add, it needs to be done before 2. I feel like it's baked into the cake that you're leaving right now. That's the way I look at it. Because why am I going to say, hey, this needs to be filed now? And then I don't even feel like I need to say done before 2, but now I have to like go on. It's due by da-da-da-da-da. I used to not have to do that. And now I do. Now I've got to go on to the why. Now I think that there's a good place for a father and a home and mother to explain, we grew up, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't do drugs, right? Don't do drugs. But nobody said why, right?
Just duty.
So I had a client that was willing to talk to my young men. It's been like 10, 15 years ago. And he was my why. In and out of prison, so on and so forth, doing fairly well this go round, but still panicked about it and very on a sleeve and loved talking to the young men. They got a real good picture as to why you don't begin down that road of narcotics. And so I do believe that why is powerful.
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit, right? Because I've kind of said, and this is the compliment to the generation that's younger than us, is that questioning is annoying. As a parent, sometimes it's annoying that they can't just accept what we accepted, that, you know, either truth is truth or duty is duty, or you just do it because you do it type of thing. I get that can be frustrating. At the same time, in some of the more grandiose things of belief systems, like, you know, morals and whatever else, when they go through that process of actually seeing the purpose behind it, a lot of times that conviction is stronger, which we talked about, and that can be a good thing, or even better than what we're doing when we do it out of duty. Eventually that's either runs its course or we start questioning it at one point. But when they go through that process early of finding the why, it can be very beneficial. Especially
before it begins. Yeah. So back to okay, Gunnery Sergeant in Full Metal Jacket, or back to Mr. Miyagi. This is the very beginning. They haven't done one push-up yet. Miyagi, he hasn't done one karate move yet.
And is that movie different? So I don't know where you're going with this, but I'm just asking the question. Is that movie different if Mr. Miyagi explains to him that the moves that he's doing right now are going to be karate moves in the future? Does that motivate Daniel's son more or less if he knows the purpose from the beginning?
Okay, so I think what was being taught,
because I know there's two different things being taught, right? There's the correlation with the karate that he eventually introduces, but it's the It's just the
Right.
do your duty, hard work,
Right.
go through a process.
And
it's
I
not as
also
easy as it.
believe it was the figure. So kind of like Mr. Miyagi was Google. Okay, so
Yeah.
I do what I say.
It's the respect. It's the discipline.
Yes,
Yeah.
do what I say. Gunnery sergeant. Everybody says drill sergeant. Fine. Drill sergeant in Full Metal. Gunnery sergeant. Do what I say. It will keep you alive. When you're jumping fences, running from bullets, and all of a sudden that pull-up became very, very important. All of a sudden that particular item that he just drilled down on that discipline, that not having that donor, that being one, eating as a group, doing everything as a group, that's going to keep the group more effective and more alive. Okay. Danielson gets to see, holy crap, Miyagi not only made me stronger and taught me karate, and I didn't even know it. Okay, now he was all in. As far as Miyagi was something big to him. Ultimately his father figure and a great story within the story.
And in an ideal world, isn't that probably how we'd want the process to be, in the sense that for kids, for anybody going through things, the first thing you want probably to be established is that respect factor of whoever's teaching that. Let's say it's a father, let's say it's a teacher, let's say it's a cop, let's say it's God. That respect factor, if that can be established first, that you respect and you understand that this is the rule and this is the law and this is what we're supposed to follow. And then as that questioning comes up and purpose comes up later on, as long as you still have that respect for that original OG of the person, whoever that is, then that makes that process easier. But if you do it the opposite, that may not work as well. If you're constantly questioning the respect of the person that you have, then then it's harder to come to that realization of what the purpose was in general.
We just did a social experiment, and we saw how deep this way of thinking can be, how really disruptive it can be. And it's really a lack of A, thinking for yourself, and B, this is kind of interesting, authority doesn't really matter. Like authority. We were taught to respect our elders, right? And I don't care who you are. If you're a certain age, that was a thing. There was a yes or no, sir, somewhere along the line. There was a yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. It was probably a little bit more relevant a few years before you were a teenager, but it's still, you did experience yes or no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, to a degree. And I experienced
biblical, right? Honor your father and mother. Or
yes,
honor, I mean, that's just
respect your elders, and so it's a high likelihood that Reed's going to get down the road in 1 week, 1 hour, 10 years, however. And if he comes to me and says, "What do you think about da 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 da?" There's a high likelihood that I've lost a leg on that landmine that he's talking to me about. Oh yeah. All right, well, let's talk about that. Or whatever the case might be.
Sure.
They don't know what it's like to leave a hospital with them in your car.
Especially these two.
Yes,
the
these
firstborns.
two specifically was a panic moment in time wherein I'm just carrying the biggest baby out of San Diego.
And
he probably wasn't small either.
This one, my wife was she had so much not PTSD, what do they call it, postpartum, that we went to the beach the first time when he was about 4 or 5 months old. Maybe he was a little bit older, but he was less than a year. And she had him wrapped like a mummy, head to toe. Yeah. Like if sand got on him, he was dying.
It was the end.
He fell off a bed that was like this high off the ground. She wanted to go home. She wanted to fly home.
Huh? Okay, right. And so these are the experiences they don't know.
They just don't
about,
know. They
right.
haven't experienced that worry and that stress.
And that you and your wife trying to figure out how.
To the day.
Right. And it's ongoing.
Yeah.
And so, leaving, I remember this walk. It was in a hallway, and in San Diego, they still had nursery. So they didn't, the rest of the kids were like literally with mom 10 seconds later, not Reed. He was all night long in nursery and getting the shots, and, literally a rabbi.
RSV, and
a rabbi walked by and said, "Oh, they're going to charge you $800 and yada dollars to circumcise them, or I can do it for $200. I'm like, well, okay, that makes that easy. Shalom. And so, and onto the wood board he went, and I went, oh,
and you know
snap.
what? That principle was taught. That's the OGs that were teaching that anyways.
Isn't that hilarious, though? I mean, I said, anyway, so I'm leaving with a car seat, and I'm learning that car seats plug into, the baby seat plugs into the car seat, da-da-da-da-da, and on you go. So that was pretty fancy. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not old enough to, was a carriage, blah, blah, blah. No. But I had that. But I remember it being heavy in one arm.
Super heavy. Those suckers.
And going, oh, man, I'm going to have to do the fruitcake, like in the elbow thing.
I was so glad when the car seat was done because you're carrying that.
Right?
Anyway.
Maybe that's why you're right side.
Maybe.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
So anyway, I remember walking and Mom's being shuffled down the way ahead in a
wheelchair.
Yeah. And so it's just me and Reed. And I'm thinking, it's just me and you, dude. Why are they letting me leave with you? I mean, I feel like I'm robbing a bank, and oh boy. I mean, there's a feeling that everything just changed forever.
Yeah.
And it did. Landmine that they're going to both step on, and it changes everything. But everything that we had worked for to that point in life was moving towards being able to kind of handle that weight and handle that extra additional significant change. But then they don't know what it's like you can't be sick. What do you mean you're sick? You got bills to pay. Yeah. Who else is going to show up to court? I don't care if you got 103 temp. Who else is going to be there? And so, okay. Then we lived through this social experiment called COVID. And I remember, and you were there. Reed was there. I'm pointing out at Reed. When Paige was reading me that this COVID thing, we were in Flagstaff at a cabin when the pandemic began. And there was quite a stir going on. And I thought, I had 2.5, 3 hours to think on it because, where we were coming from is about that amount of time away. I'm like, so it's a virus? And she said, yeah, it's a virus, coronavirus. I go, And before I think we were pulling the Jeep that time. We swung in to Sprouts, and Paige is like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to go get some vitamin D and some zinc. You said it's a virus, right? Yeah. Okay. Then the masks came. Then the 6 feet came. It all came very fast. Yeah. And I thought I was watching the world's biggest clown show idiot fest on the planet. Then I see my little kids going to school with masks around their chin and wherever else. And just it became part of the culture. And I'm just like, I don't blame the children at all because they're young. You guys are young, exempt. It's the idiots I still see with the mask on. And the ones that were then, I mean, it's like when we locked down for a few weeks, I was out every day. And we were essential. Remember that? Except they shut
Nobody would
all
come
of our
in,
stuff down. Right.
Yeah.
They shut all of our stuff down. So what good was that?
We eventually. Yeah.
But I just went out every day. No car, no nothing, just out. Because to me, it was the most ridiculous, retarded thing happening. Oop. Somebody had told me lately that is not a cool word, and it was loosely used in my youth growing up, and I need to pull that out. It was really not a very wise moment whatsoever to do that, and to see all the sheep that just followed what. So you go on to your social feed. And I guarantee your money back, your social feed's going to have some sports stuff going on. It's going to have some golf stuff going on. It's going to have likely predominantly some sports and golf stuff. Maybe some things that you've invested in here and there, but that interests you less than those things. possibly some shoes of athletic nature.
Nah.
No?
I'm not a shopper, but yeah, I get where you're going with
Okay.
it. Yeah, my
But
interest.
that's all you're going to see is whatever you look at.
Yeah.
And that the same thing happens when we consume media. All we're going to see is, if you're right-leaning, all you're going to see is all the good things that are going on with, the right side of politics. Likewise, if you're left-leaning, all you're going to see is all the left-leaning stuff, da-da-da-da-da. And very few people kind of consider both ends of things, where in COVID, I was able to kind of just watch and see, all right, it appears that Florida looks like it's going in a better direction than California. Really, Florida looks like it's going in a real good direction. I mean, it's growing like crazy. They haven't shut down. You've got Disneyland in California, Disney World in Florida. One shut down, one is not. Okay, isn't this the same deadly whatever going around in both states, and so on and so forth? You see all that cluster that happened in New York. So the further the left, seemingly the worse it got. And then I feel really bad for those kids that were literally out of school, not even having school going on for a few years. I mean, can you imagine certain areas of life that are missed, that are pivotal? That's pretty big. And these two young men here grew up kind of old enough to look at this thing and go, this is weird stuff.
Were you a junior or senior in high school? Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Were
I would
you
say
really?
junior high, and that's pivotal.
Wow,
That's a
that
big one.
feels
That's
like
like
a
Jesse, my other side.
Okay.
And I
Oh, yeah,
think
that's
it hit,
true, because the other kids were in elementary
I think
school.
I think it hit
I was
Jesse
in-
harder than Reed.
I was in junior year, so yeah, no, I didn't feel like I got hit hard at all. Like, I didn't have to skip out my senior graduation, and I wasn't losing the most important year of high school either.
But that year above you was the one that, yeah, because it would have been Colton's 6th grade, because he missed. I remember they did a 6th grade graduation in cars, and you said hi to your teacher from a car.
And
Yeah.
fortunately, also, is that I went to a school that was like open the next August, so I hardly even had to deal with online schooling, except for like 1 week where
Were you
one
at
of our
ALA?
teachers got COVID.
Were you at ALA?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I remember ALA was the one school that we could opt out of the masks. We could say that
We didn't have to
whatever
wear 'em,
purpose. Yeah, so there was like 4 kids in the whole school, and 3 of them were mine that didn't wear masks to school.
They were loving every minute of it.
He was at the junior high level, but then the elementary, I remember ALA had some
Yeah,
different things.
It is interesting, and so all my kids have gone there, but not elementary, but for their junior high and high school experiences. But 8th grade, that's a real. I mean, in my opinion, 8th grade's a very pivotal grade.
Yeah.
You're worried is like all get out, because there's going to be this locker room flavor that's already kind of begun. Should have begun in 7th grade, but don't get my brother started on this. This is one of the funniest things you'll ever hear about, because he heard that there are curtains in dude locker rooms, and he went, "They're what?"
I don't even think anybody showers anymore.
Right, and then I said, that was my response. Like, they don't even shower, Nate.
Yeah.
And Nate's like, "There's no
Nate's going to tell us the lessons learned on the tree of life.
the tree of life, baby." I mean,
on the shower that had not even no curtains. You were literally 2 feet away from
weren't
the dude
even
next
that.
to you.
I got in a fight in the 8th grade.
Those nozzles were right here.
That
They went
you
6
were-
around.
You were not far from the dude next to you. I mean, there was no elbow room. You were hitting them when you were showering.
Yeah.
No question. And you know what?
That's not even conceivable for this generation.
And I don't understand
I have those
that.
conversations with my kids all the
right.
time, and some of them are, my 14-year-old will moon me all the time. But man, if I told him that he had to shower next to random
there.
junior high or something like that, or
Or
anybody,
just his brother.
yeah, oh yeah, no, not even something
Look,
like
in the 8th grade, so you appreciate this since we're COVID, 8th grade. In the 8th grade, I got peed on in the tree, and I decked the dude. I mean, full on big old brawl, buck naked, sausages flapping everywhere. I mean, it was crazy, but no, I'm not going to sit there and But that was how we grew up. It was awesome because, frankly, we didn't think anything of it. I never thought a thing of it.
I mean, I think it was that first, maybe it's that 8th grade year. When you're first introduced to it, you're scared of it.
Yeah, you're nervous. I was nervous.
But, I think I remember being dragged in by somebody older on the basketball team and be like, bro, this is the way the way it is. And if you're going to be made more fun of if you don't come in type of thing. And so you just got used to it. And then it became like a rite of passage, and you did the same thing to the younger generation and said, nope, this is the way it is. And
at some point, when I was in 7th grade, I saw the dude slapping, doing the towel crack and and it became like, okay, all right. And everybody does the whole, well, I'm a small, undeveloped individual, and it's like, okay, well, there's 32 more of those right there, and they're, in various levels of maturity. And then you've got your 16 monkeys that have, hair from head to toe. And you're like, how did that happen? Anyway, but
yeah, it
doesn't happen anymore. And so, but
that's the problem with our society.
It could, well, if you get Nate going, he kind of thinks so.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You get him going.
It did take the top off the cap of, and maybe there's some that experience bullying and different things in that type of a situation. I don't know, but it did definitely take the cloud of.
Well, it's kind of like
vergüenza in Spanish of embarrassment.
Yeah, I mean
vulnerability or whatever else.
How do you take yourself that? I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those things. So then you get to
nobody's a tough guy naked.
I hear Nickelodeon Reed's watching that, and I was pretty quietly directing them at what they watched because I couldn't stand certain things like wah wah whoopsie drove me nuts. We've talked about that. You're good because you're cool because you're cool. You're cool because you're cool. Oh no! Heck no! But I just quietly just would change it, and then we dumbed into Wildcrats, and Reed really liked that, and dumbed into a few other kind of I can deal with that. That's kind of got a science base and. There's a few other ones that were pretty cool.
The ones you could tolerate, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was the messaging that I couldn't stand. I didn't want you to think you were cool just because you were breathed air. That's not the way it works. And so I wasn't going to go there. I wasn't going to have this. And then I keep seeing the commercials. So another problem was the commercials. The bullying, tell an adult, the bullying. And it's kind of like prejudice. You're racist. You're this. You're that. Bullying. Racist. This. It makes everything so much worse. It's like, yeah, there's bullies. Okay, and there always has been there's always been a biff.
Yeah, and your point is always that in fact, I was at an event last night, a Halloween trunk or treat or whatever else, and I was sitting next to, we're in a new area now, so these are all new people, and I was sitting next to a guy that's a newly licensed psychologist, I think, psychiatrist or I think psychologist. Anyway, and he's in right now he's interning at like a mental health group, like trying to figure out specifically men and older men and career men, professionals that are part of this group. Anyway, and we were talking and it came up, some of the topics that we talked about mental health, and he was making the point, and I said, that's funny, we had a podcast about this, of he thinks that there's an overcorrection, like you were kind of saying on the mental health side of things, that there is mental health, but there is a lot of people now that are using it as a crutch to not deal with life.
Right.
So I thought it was interesting because it was
now if you're
he's in that industry and he's
right now if you're on the spectrum, that gives you an automatic out.
And so on things. That same point that you're talking about, it's just that overcorrection.
Who does Sam help came up with the spectrum? I want to know
that we do in life. Yeah, that we just tend to see something that's either existed for a long time or. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be dealt with. Bullies, that's not okay. And I've realized that in parts of my own high school, I don't think I was ever an active bully, but I would maybe even say there were times where I was a passive bully, where I watched it happen and I wish I would have stepped up. And so there's lessons to be learned about that.
On all those different levels.
And I don't shy away from that accountability of I could have been a better person, but at the same time, am I going to punish myself? Am I going to overcorrect and now
I was pretty great when it came to that. I had other things I could have definitely worked on as far as, did I make other people feel stupid inadvertently or less welcome? I know I did those things.
I know.
And it makes me feel pretty not cool about that. I run into them in life, and it's like all they wanted to be was your friend. And,
and you just
and it's like, and you were kind of a wingnut,
blissfully ignorant or consciously ignorant of not wanting to put yourself in those social
or just didn't
circles.
have the time.
Yeah,
or just didn't feel like giving the time, even though what
and
worth was my time.
Sometimes in that time, I look back and go, I didn't even actively see that I wasn't being kind. It was just the culture that I lived in. You didn't. The jocks didn't hang out with that group.
Right. They're in choir. And you're shooting.
It's just not my
and you're trying
social
to
circle.
Not hit threes because your coach will make you run if you don't.
And I do. It seems like this generation is somewhat correcting that, and I appreciate it that I see quite a mixture of, like, it's not as cliquey as it once was. It's not just the football kids hanging out with each other. It's not just the drama kids. I mean, there's still a little bit.
There's still that.
I mean, the drama kids are still.
It's always going to be. It's always going to be a little bit of drama kids.
Still a little bit special.
They're on a spectrum.
There is, but there is a much more mixture than we definitely clicked ourselves out and isolated certain groups.
For sure.
And I'm glad that
it's like Ferris Bueller. You've got your dorks, you got your dweebs, you got your sluts, you got your but Ferris Bueller, he's just a righteous dude.
Yeah. And I like the kids are more accepting of.
Yeah, they're far more open.
Eclectic.
Ferris Bueller style a little bit. However, I will say to respond, because I've been thinking about it all week. I've been thinking about you specifically all week. It's been awesome. Oh, man, I love it. Okay, and I'm thinking, all right, Caden, I love that he locks in. And I love that he's got this grit to that lock-in. And that he has interests. And he locks in on those interests. And I would say that I'm thinking of Karate Kid, and I'm thinking of, drill sergeant, and I'm thinking, okay, I lean more towards that type of thing. However, I don't know. I didn't get the whys a lot either. Because I said so, and that's not going to fly with Caden.
It didn't fly with me either. I struggled with that.
I probably did too.
My mom really hated that I always asked, I don't like the because. And often I had to do it anyway because that was just the culture I grew up in. But I think I would have been a little better in his generation. But I appreciate the grind still. I appreciate that part of it. And that's the part that I wish they appreciated a little bit more.
Yeah, and so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to run in here and go, okay, listen, keep that. It's awesome what you got going on, that knowledge that you guys are building. And that interest and that curiosity that you guys have. Don't lose that. Keep that going. But add duty. So what we talked about last week, add duty. What you can control it best you can and develop those good habits. Add a Miyagi flavor that you're going to actually have to be your own Miyagi a little bit here because you guys are way advanced. Reed knows more about these cameras. And I bought him before he graduated or around his graduation time. He knows more about this whole entire. He's cutting these things and putting them up on there in the stratosphere, and I don't even know. You put a gun to my head, I wouldn't know what that camera's even called. I'd say it's a Sony because I've seen the brand. I wouldn't even know what type it is. You and I know how to buy a sound card.
We learned
because we've had to buy them.
I think we bought a couple wrong ones, but
it might have been the case. Who's counting?
That's right.
It was a good field trip for us.
But I get the point.
But they're going to have to be their own Miyagis. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to kind of sprinkle that in. Make yourself wash your car. Why? Well, because it's teaching you a discipline. Make yourself keep your space clean. Make yourself make your bed. Make 50% of your meals. What does that look like? My dad used to say, one of the greatest things my dad used to say is, don't bring me excuses, bring me results. And so that was kind of more of a Miyagi type thing. And it bothered me about why nobody talked about why, because it bothered me. But you're creating your own good habits so you can maximize this knowledge and where you want to take it, where you want to apply it, Where do you want to be with it in time? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Where do you want to be, and how are you going to get there? And the how is just as important as the why. But that Miyagi, here's why. He needed him stronger. He needed him to know who was the master, who was the teacher, and he needed him to be able to listen to him no matter what. You don't breathe until I tell you to breathe. There's a reason for it. So I would have loved my dad to have said, hey, we're going to mow the lawn. Okay, guys, come in here and let's huddle. Dana, get cranking on the lawn. Nate, get cranking on the weeds. James, get cranking on getting all the crap out of the sandboxes and da-da-da-da-da. Get cranking on that so we can get our butts out of here and go to wherever we were on our way to. Usually it was Dunkin' Donuts. And it was like, oh, okay, there's the why, right? And there's that never happened. Did we end up at Dunkin' Donuts? Yeah. That was, let's get going, let's get going, let's get going. And frankly, unlike me, he was there in the fray doing it. He wasn't just in on the couch watching football on Saturday.
Which you remember now to this day that he was part of the grind.
Right, he was part of that.
Part of the lesson as well.
And I'm not.
And maybe it's that we get the like you talked about at the beginning of the experience part of it. We get to look back and retrospectively look at all these lessons that we learned that maybe were in the weeds of things and not in the actual, like you said, explained from the beginning. And there's value to that too, I think, that life experience. And we get to now tell a story of most of ours was done by example in the process.
Yeah.
And that's the tough part is that I don't know if it changes much. I agree with you. Maybe giving the why makes it easier, but unless you go through that process, the why that you're giving, so maybe that why was the Dunkin' Donuts, but sometimes the why is just the process of doing it, right? Of learning that discipline, which is hard to quantify and explain.
Is the because.
Unless you do it, so I can say that, hey, when you do this making of your bed for a month, you're going to start to feel this way, but unless they actually experiment on the seed or whatever, unless they experiment on what they're doing, that never grows, or they never see that.
Right.
And so I think, I don't know. Like you said, a social experiment of, I still think these kids just sometimes just have to go through, they got to trust us.
Yeah. There's got to be a trust factor, because here's the deal.
They got to go through it.
Here's the deal. You and I have both not loved process people. Process people, we both, frankly, couldn't live without them. We love them because they work for us.
Yeah.
Okay. But to be able to juggle process and getting things done, getting things complete, growth, and all of that, you got to be able to interplay that. You got to be able to jump off the process. But there are some truths that you just can't get around. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much money in the bank. There's only so much this towards this project, and this towards this project, and this towards this project. You can only do so many things. So what are you going to do? And so when you challenge yourself, like you're your own Miyagi, you're your own drill sergeant, because no one else is really going to do it anymore. You're your own. And you say, okay, I'm going to do this experiment like Jesse was just saying. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make my bed for a month and see what's what. And I'm going to make 50% of my meals. Okay, keep it simple. Start small. But start seeing how it feels at the end of that time. Like, document it a little bit. I haven't walked into my bedroom I'm 50. 45 years? Your entire lifetime? I have not walked into my bedroom with a bed not made. And if by some chance that did happen, it was like, wait, what? It like felt sloppy, right? Now I've walked into many bedrooms wherein their beds are not made. Reed's actually pretty good at this. So is Jesse. My oldest two really, I'm screwing up.
No, it's amazing with the older two that there's a definite difference in my household too.
Yeah, thank goodness.
On who's willing to do work and who's not.
Isn't it interesting? And who's willing to say stuff to you and like dig at a deeper level?
Sure.
is your younger
Oh,
ones.
for sure.
And the older ones, there's a little bit of respect
There's a little
going on there.
and I don't know where that. I've tried to think in my head, like going back to bringing him in the baby. Was it just that we were more diligent with teaching respect to the older ones, or is it the generation just? I don't know what it is.
I don't either.
Do we get lazier as parents? I don't know. I haven't figured it out, but that's a topic for another day.
That is. I do like this though. Just kind of be your own Miyagi, kind of be your own drill sergeant in certain things that you can control. Kind of like what Jesse said last week. It's like you're taking care of those things that you can control. When, like we started out, Presley, when she was grinding early morning gym, had a job going on, was doing EVIT, which is a great thing to be doing, and school also, blah, 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 and boom, boom, boom. And somehow she felt so much better with that grind than she does with the current, a little less. It's still a grind. She's still accomplishing quite a few great things. Good for her, but you can't unsee that. You can't unfeel that. You know what I mean? And so it's like, okay, once you hit a certain spot on the scale, if you're trying to, lose weight and you're paying some attention to your diet and you're paying some attention to your activities and all that jazz, and you see a certain number that you didn't think you'd ever see, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
You cannot unsee that.
And I'm maybe a little bit like Presley in the sense that sometimes I'm not as good as you, as that I can say for 45 years that I started a habit and I'm continuing through it. I sometimes ebb and flow as well. But I definitely, as experiences kind of taught me, I know when I'm out of rhythm. I know when I'm out of sorts. I know when I need. And I'm a creature of habit. Worse than a lot. Like, you see my mate in front of me, or my celery juice, or my cold plunge, or whatever it is.
I love the way
all those are creatures of habit that just they're part of who I've become and what I feel good about doing. And when I have one of those missing in life, I definitely feel it. And it's a matter of knowing that difference and putting yourself back on that track. And sometimes it's easier depending on what's going on in life.
And I think that's exactly what we're talking about. You're
your
own
recognizing
your own Miyagi.
Yeah.
You're your own. So you're like, okay,
when Miyagi's
yank it
being
back
lazy
in.
a little bit.
Well, yank it back in. All right, Westover, yank it back in. Let's do this. Let's do that. And so am I, because I might have some of these things down, but there's
other things
that are loose and fast and out of control, and I need to bring those on in. And there's some things that you can control and some things that you cannot. And the fact that I'm doing pretty well with those things that I can control. But perfect? No, crap. No, life is practice.
Yeah.
And it's your life, and it's your success, and it's your peaks, and it's your valleys, and they're your experiences that you are to learn from and share. And we're watching and learning from you guys. And I'm telling you, be your own Miyagi. And because there's a lot too when Dad says do this, that, or the other, or somebody you respect, some older person that's been down the road of this war that we're all in together. This person knows things. Okay, they've stepped on landmines, they've lost limbs, they've done this, they've done that throughout the way, and they don't want to see you or Reed do the same thing. They don't want to see that. It's inevitable you're going to step on your own landmines and get to share that with posterity as well, with those that are behind you, your younger siblings, your kids someday, or a neighbor kid or whomever. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's no end to this reach. There's no end to this reach. But be your own Miyagis and start to really kind of put some color on, well, why am I doing this? I don't know. I don't know why I do this, other than when I come home at night, I see a made bed, a bed that I made. Okay? Now, this is long before that guy gave the talk and wrote the book. I see a bed that I made, and so the day couldn't have been that bad.
And maybe that's the key that we're missing there is that when you're saying, and maybe the point was well taken on being your own Miyagi, is that start, maybe instead of just questioning to the person that's telling you, let's say it's dad or whatever, and the cop or whatever is telling you not to do a certain thing or to do a certain thing, and you're doing it because that person said it, and you're not, but maybe it's the process of asking yourself at the end of the day, what did this do? Like, why would I think that my dad is asking me to do this? What is that purpose in going through that process of doing it on your own? And like you said, being your own Miyagi, maybe that's the value. And maybe that's where sometimes if you continue to do it just based on the duty of somebody told you to do it, then you lose sight of it. And maybe, that process of, and we know that with everything, with with faith, like you can rely on somebody else's faith,
right?
You
can draft
so
on
long
that for so
until
long.
you have to.
It's like this. It's like this. I believe that we got to turn down the dial of pride, which we always got to look at that dial of pride. We got to bring that down because we got to notice, okay, I'm bringing a lot to the table here, but let's bring down how much did I develop and did I struggle and how much was I just given? Yeah. Okay. So let's just bring down that dial of pride to where there was a time where Daniel's son, Daniel, snapped, said, what am I doing all this crap? There was a time where he wanted to know the why, but he had already done a lot to set him up for, okay.
So now the lesson
I am now going to take bullets for you forever, Master, Mr. Miyagi. You are now my father figure for good, period, end of story. And I'm going to listen to what you do, everything that you tell me to do, which made him very successful in what they were trying to achieve. Okay. That cop that pulls you over, okay, and you don't know why the Sam, and you think he's pulling you over because you're young, pulling you over because whatever, da-da-da-da-da. And he gives you a lecture, and you have an option to go, screw you, whatever, and your billy goat, or just be pissed off, take the ticket, which is probably what most people do, or to hear what that officer's saying, because you don't know if another gray car that looked just like yours slid right through that thing with a California roll with a chicken crap, who cares type move in traffic, but just so happened to hit a kid on a tricycle, killed him, and that cop just happened to be there and scraped him off the daggum asphalt 3 days prior and had to go home to his wife that's freaking out over this guy about ready to take a bullet any given minute, and we're over here pissing and moaning about cop. Okay? So sometimes you're not going to ever know the why.
Yeah, and the same thing can go, like you use the dad example of, and maybe we're starting to run out of time, but there's a lot of times that, and sometimes we have to be careful as a parent because we don't want to reveal, especially when they're young, that we've made these mistakes, because then there's that respect factor too that you just don't want to. Yeah. Anyway, there's strategy to everything you do as a parent as well. Right. But oftentimes the same exact example of the cop is that oftentimes we've experienced that hardship and gone down that road before, and we don't want to see the suffering that we had to go through. And sometimes the suffering is inevitable, but each father's trying to not have as many bumps in the roads and pitfalls for their kids as possible. And so, and the kids don't understand that, and it's hard to explain to them that sometimes mental anguish is not quantifiable. It's not there's no explanation to it. It's just, dude, believe me. Yeah. You don't want to do this.
So there's going to have to be, just add a little bit of willing.
Yeah, a little humility.
To your list. Yeah. A little bit of willing to do something that you don't quite see the meaning behind yet. You don't quite know that police officer did that, or that there is no days off when I walked out of the hospital with that guy. Same with him, with you. There were no days off. There was nobody else to cover your court appearances back then, Westover. The man I caught in the most safe parking lot in Mesa, Arizona, where drive-bys are happening regularly, and Westover's right in the middle of it, no big deal. But you were saved for bigger purposes, and there's no question in my mind. But my point is look, there are things that you're going to hear. Be smart about your Miyagis, but they're there. They're out there. They're out there. Jordan Peterson, he's fantastic. I like him a lot. But there's plenty of really good material out there to say, okay, these are good Miyagis. These develop habits. I don't quite understand why. And some of these are going to be future bosses, future professors, future a lot of things in your future, future superiors. And there's a reason that they're superior. Does that mean that they're better than? No. It just means they've gone through more than. Okay, so wait till your superior is about dang near your own age. That's interesting. you've experienced that a little bit on your mission, and you're going to experience that along the way in college, because there's going to be somebody that's a senior and you're a sophomore, and you're about the same age, but they have more experience in college than you do, and so all right, they might have a point here and there. Do you know what I mean? And so that's the way things go. Be our own Miyagi. I like where we were going last week. I'd listened to it twice. It was our longest pod, and I was like, "Dadgum!" And there's just some of the little things that you said. It's like, and kind of I'm piggybacking on the Kate. I'm like, wow, okay, this.
No, these are great. I mean, and it's
awesome.
Fun to bring my son here to be able to listen to some of these things, because it's a forum where, we've talked about this. I love perspectives. I'm not afraid of a different perspective. It was fun to feel and hear. I mean, there's passion on that side of the generation as well, and what they feel and what they are experiencing in their heads. And I'm never afraid of that. I think there's a nice thing about, he unfortunately has to listen to us jabber on for 20 minutes, but it gives a good perspective of, it's not a lecture, it's us talking, it's conversation, it's both of our experiences, and
I love
and there's value in all of that.
I love when these guys talk. I love when they tell us stuff, and I love.
And maybe we need to grab a couple other microphones one day. And
we probably ought to just put a face to the name.
Yeah,
put a face to the name. I love it. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Let's do it.
I'm giving this the thumbs up.
Yep.